Alright guys, so yesterday we did video 1 and we tracked its motion as it moved in a positive direction and as it accelerated. So today for this tutorial I'm going to move on to video 2. Now if you don't have video 1 done, or if you're using this for one of the other videos, it's the same steps, it's just the motion is different. So follow these same steps no matter what video you're doing. Alright, so go to Logger Pro and make sure that you opened up a new page. Then we're going to Insert and Movie. Under your files, all of your videos should be under Downloads. So click on Downloads and you're going to look in this folder for Toy Car 2. If you don't see that under your downloads, then you may need to go back to the website on your sheet and download that again. So click on Toy Car 2 and your video will open up. So if you hit play, it looks similar to the one we did yesterday, except it's getting faster as it moves to the left. Okay, so on your sheet, you're already ready to do number 1. Describe the motion of the car in this video and make a motion diagram. Go ahead and fill out number 1, and then we'll move on to number 2 here in a second. Okay, number 2, track the motion of the car on Logger Pro and make a qualitative version of the position graph and velocity graph. So I'm having you do both of them at a time here. Alright, so we need to track the motion. On this video, we have to do a few things. The first one is click this rewind button in order to send the movie back to the beginning. And we're going to go frame by frame until we see this car over here start to move forward. So frame by frame by frame, clicking on this. Looking at the car, it kind of does a little wheelie, gets off the ground, but it's not moving forward yet. Now it's starting to. So I'm actually going to go back just a little bit before it starts to move forward, right about there. Okay, so it's up to you. Find out what frame you think it is. Right before it starts to move, leave your playhead right there. Okay. Click on this bottom right button to give you your toolbar. The first thing we do is click this 4th button down, Set Scale. We're telling the computer how far distance is. So this meter stick that's on the table, you're going to go to one end of the meter stick, click and hold, and drag it to the other end, telling the computer that that is a distance of 1 meter, and now it can measure for us. So we say, yes, this is a distance of 1 meter. That is correct, computer. Okay. All right, next step. We have to set the origin. Now, yesterday we set the origin to the initial position of our car. So if you want to do that again, that's fine. You click on the Set Origin button, third one down, and you click at the very front bumper of the car. That's where our motion begins. That's our position of 0. All right, before we start to add points, we need to change those 2 settings on our video. So 2-finger click, the 2 fingers on the trackpad, click, and go to Movie Options. Under Movie Options, there's 2 settings we need to change. The first is this, changing the point, the first point that we make, defining that as movie time of 0. There was a lot of time here where the car sat still. We want the time to start when we make our first dot, so we check that box. The other thing, we don't want to advance 1 frame at a time. There would be too many dots. So we're going to skip this to 3 frames at a time, and then click OK. All right, now we're ready to actually track. So the second button down, Add Point button, this is what we're using to track where the car is at. So a dot at a time, you're going to take your cursor and place a dot at the front bumper of the car. When you place it, the video moves forward 3 frames. So notice my car, it barely moved from 0. It moved just barely forward. So I'm making another dot really close to 0. But then it moved a little bit more. And then it moved a little bit more. So as it gets faster and faster, the car gets more and more blurry, and it becomes hard to see where the front of the car is. But as best you can, try to find the front of the car and make a dot on the bumper. Really quick, let me show you. If you mess up, look, I'm going to put a point over here. I messed up. I did not want to put that point there. Go to Edit, undo, and then it'll get rid of the last step that you just did. Okay, so I'm continuing to put it at the front of the bumper until I reach the end of the video right around there. Now it's off the screen. Alright, that's it for the points. Just to be safe, we still have this add point button selected. Select the top button, and that way when you click on the video, it's not going to add any more accidental points to your screen. Alright, great. We can look at our graph now. So behind your video, you can drag and move it, or you can move it smaller. We have this graph. So we still have this curve on the red dots, but we have these blue dots that we don't really want. Remember, the blue dots are showing the Y direction, and we don't care about the Y direction because our card did not move up or down at all. So two-finger click once again on the graph and go to Graph Options. Under Graph Options, like I said, both the X and the Y direction are selected, but we only care about the X direction, so we can deselect the Y. Click OK. Now we're left with only our red dots, and this is the graph that they're asking you to draw on your sheet. So for your first graph here, this would be a position versus time graph, and you're going to draw that same graph that you see from Logger Pro. So draw that now. Okay, the other graph that we had to draw was a velocity versus time graph. We'll do that over here. To make a velocity graph, we have to insert another graph. So go up to the top, click on Insert, Graph, and you see this jumbled up mess. That's because, once again, these are blue dots. It's telling you that this is the Y direction, the direction that we don't care about. So two-finger click on the graph, go to your Graph Options, and we are going to deselect the Y direction. We only care about the horizontal direction, so instead of Y velocity, we're going to check X velocity. Click OK, and now you have a velocity graph that looks much nicer. It starts close to a speed of 0, and as time goes on, it's getting more and more negative, speeding up in that negative direction. Great. Okay, number 3, describe how the slope of your position versus time graph changes. So this is our velocity graph. Looking back to our position graph, the slope starts pretty flat. And to see that even better, we can use this tool we used yesterday, the tangent button. This one here. So click on that tangent button, and when you hover over each dot, sometimes you need to click, it'll show you what the slope at each point is. And you can see at the beginning, it started very flat. But as time went on, that slope changed. It got steeper and steeper in the negative direction. So write down that answer for 3. And then problem 4, the last part to analyze this video, we need to find the overall slope, the maximum velocity, and the maximum acceleration for the car in this video. To do this, we're going to use our velocity graph. So make sure you're looking at your velocity graph. And the first thing we're going to find is the overall slope. So from our speed of almost 0, it sped up in the negative direction. Now all these points through here are very linear. That's telling us that the acceleration during that time was pretty constant. So what we're going to do for this section of points that I think look like they're in a line, I'm going to click and drag and highlight those points on my graph. And what I want the graph or Logger Pro to do for me is make a straight line through those points. The tool to do that is this one. It's called Linear Fit. So up above, click on that button, and it's going to put a straight line only through that data that you selected, the data that you told it to use. So it's leaving off these points at the beginning and the points at the end for me. It's only putting a straight line through the ones I selected. Okay, the overall slope is what it asked for. So it's the slope of this line that we just made. When you made the line, it opened this box that gave you a lot of information about the line you just made. This slope would be your answer. Now on your screen, your slope is probably a little different, so write down whatever you have under your slope. Notice it's negative. So it's going in the negative direction. It has a negative acceleration of 1.336 meters per second per second. Make sure you have a label for your answer. That was overall slope. All right, next, maximum velocity. We're just looking at what was the top speed that our car reached. So I'm going to exit out of this box. I don't need that line anymore. I'm just simply looking at these points and finding out which one's the furthest away from zero. So it got faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and then it started to kind of level off around here. And it looks like my top speed was one of these two triangles. This is as fast as it got. So if I click on my graph and I have my little cursor pop up, down here on the lower left-hand corner of the graph, it's going to be over here when my cursor's on the graph, it'll show you two numbers. The first number is what time your cursor is at. The second number is at what velocity. So if you look at that bottom left-hand corner, once again, it's over in this area. When my cursor is on the graph, it tells me that my speed is at negative 1.358. That would be my maximum velocity for this. So once again, I looked at which triangle was the farthest from zero. I chose it to be this one. And I looked at my bottom left-hand corner of my graph and saw that the second number was negative 1.37, which is close to what I just said. So my top speed for my car was negative 1.37. Do that with your graph. Notice that was a velocity, so the label should be meters per second for that. All right, and the last one, maximum acceleration. We found the overall slope, so we found the overall acceleration, or average acceleration. But maybe there was a time in its motion where the car went and accelerated even more than that. So we're looking at when is the slope on this graph the steepest. The easiest way to see that is once again to use this button, the tangent tool. Click on that button, and as you hover over these points, it'll show you in this box what your slope is. So right now it's a negative 0.97, but as I move ahead, then it changes, negative 1.271, and then it gets even steeper, 1.44, and even steeper, 1.53. Then it gets a little less steep, 1.48, and less steep, and even less steep. So back to this one, when it was at negative 1.53, that's when it was the steepest. That's my answer for maximum acceleration. So it looks like at a time of 0.5 in its motion, my car was the fastest. Not fastest, but it was accelerating the most. So that's the maximum acceleration for my toy car in this video. Once again, the label meters per second per second. Great. So that's it for video 2. Follow these same steps no matter what video you're on. It's just the motion will look a little bit different. Good luck.